Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Logan. I'm the Climate Impact Advisor with Terraformation. And today we're talking about forests, specifically Hawaii forests, and why they matter, not just locally, but globally. And I know a lot of people on this call here today are from all around the world, like I just said in the waiting room. Um, but we're going to talk about Hawaii forests and then how that resonates to all of you. I'd like to kind of just start with a question today. Um, what does it actually take to grow forests that last? Actually, lasting forests, right? But let's just jump in, and you can put your answer in if you have thoughts about that into the chat as well. Let's look at what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to do an overview on why Hawaii forests matter, our approach to growing lasting forests. We're going to talk about a new and fun, exciting project, Iole at Āinakea. We're going to talk about how you can help or get involved and also leave some time for questions and answers. So again, my name is Kate Logan. I'm Climate Impact Advisor for Terraformation, and I'm super excited to be here today with my colleague, Johannes Seidel. He's the Director of Hawaii Forest Operations at Terraformation. So, why are we here today? What inspired everybody to join? I think everybody obviously has affinity for forests or some reason specifically why they're here to do with restoration. We all know that we're facing an existential challenge and crisis. We've lost half of the world's forests. And one of the reasons why Terraformation was founded by Yishan Wang is we can bring those forests back, although they're disappearing at an alarming rate. I mean, over 10 million hectares a year. And that's not just the forest disappearing. We all can acknowledge it's a critical habitat as well. All the native birds and insects, our watersheds, all of those things along with it. But again, terraformation is all about hope, and we can bring those forests back as well as all those ecosystems. And so that's why we were founded, and we're here to show restoration, if done right, can remove tons, billions of carbon while restoring ecosystems, really complex ecosystems with biodiverse, native species in there, as well as livelihoods and involving communities. And so a little bit about terraformation. Our slogan's pretty simple. We grow forests to slow climate change. We grow forests, that's what we focus on every day. Our mission is to scale up restoration of native, biodiverse forests. And what we do is we equip forestry teams all around the world with training, the technology tools, and also access to capital. Our vision is pretty simple. We want to restore the Earth's forests to capture carbon, revitalize nature, and support thriving communities. And today we're going to talk about that unique approach that we take. We focus on carbon-dense projects in the tropics, and a huge focus on biodiversity, but also speed. We're going to talk a little bit today about time, and then transparency. A lot of mistrust has been in this space, and so we look to be as transparent as we can and develop any types of tools to share transparency with all of our partners around the world so that they can utilize those tools. And again, I know a lot of you are from all around the world today, so why do Hawaii forests matter? Hawaii is a really unique place. I think of it often as like the canary in the coal mine. And of course, I'm so lucky to live here. All forests are unique and very special. But what makes Hawaii so unique is that 90% of our species exist nowhere else on Earth. And many of those species face extinction, or they're threatened, endangered, or nearly extinct. And so our company was founded here in Hawaii when our founder, Yishan Wang, had an epiphany about climate change, just being on island and seeing the degradation of a property that he had purchased. And so from this urgent need, we developed a scalable restoration model that now guides our work across over 5 continents, including Africa, Colombia, the Philippines. Super exciting work that we're doing all over. But again, we're going to talk today about Hawaii, and there'll be other webinars and opportunities for our colleagues to talk about projects abroad. So we have some really cool pictures. We've been taking a lot of pictures lately. So again, that's part of transparency. This is my colleague collecting Nio seeds. And a little bit later, Johannes is going to go through the journey that we focus on, which all starts with a seed to create a forest. But the restoration ecosystem in Hawaii is pretty cool and unique. Maybe not unique, because I think this is a part of every ecosystem wherever you are. But what we look to do is integrate science, culture, and stewardship. And in Hawaii, this is nothing new. Hawaiians have always believed that the health of people and animals and insects and the health of the forests are all inseparable, as well as our water and watersheds. And so our work at Terraformation is really guided by this view. And so what we do here, as well as in our projects all around the world, is integrate community. We have partnerships with communities all around the world. And then here in Hawaii, of course, we try and lean into local expertise and then indigenous knowledge. And so what people have just passed on from the past, of course. And then this way, here in Hawaii, it's not just an environmental story, ecological resilience story that we're telling, but really a cultural one as well, where we're returning balance between human systems and natural systems. And so here in Hawaii, it's a global challenge with a local solution, right? What we're presenting today is what we're doing on the ground. And a lot of people are doing really great work as well. We just want to share this knowledge, what our solution is locally for the global challenge that we talked about earlier. And so one thing that we find here in Hawaii that makes things difficult for restoration is the ecological pressures. In Hawaii, we have tons of invasive species, not just plants, but diseases, ungulates, different animals, goats, pigs, etc. We have wildfire threat, as well as other natural disasters, storms, all of that. Drought, of course, you think of Hawaii as being this lush tropical place, but we're actually having way less rainfall due to climate change. And then the biodiversity loss that we had talked about just a few slides ago, that, Hawaii is losing all of these unique species just so rapidly. It's really a cool space here that there's a huge conservation ecosystem in Hawaii. So tons of great organizations focused on conserving and preserving the existing forests, which are fleeting, of course. But one thing that we're trying to do at Terraformation is to really widen that net on restoration, right? So conservation, conserving what is existing, and we're looking to restore what has been degraded. And we're positioned in a place here in Hawaii to really lead that approach. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, is the research and development that we do and the approach that we take. And so I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Johannes, and he'll walk everybody through our approach to grow lasting forest.
Thank you so much, Kate, for that introduction. And aloha, everyone. My name is Johannes Seidel, and I lead the forestry team for Terraformation here in Hawaii. And I'm going to spend some time to introduce our approaches and methods that we use here into growing lasting forests. So, what does it take to grow a lasting forest? In our opinion, it all starts and ends with the people. On this slide here, you can see the majority of the team that works on the forestry side here in Hawaii, that goes out into the field, that collects seeds, that grows plants in the nursery, that prepares the planting sites, puts trees in the ground, and so on. That's a really passionate and dedicated group of people that show up every morning, rain or shine, and that's really the foundation of what it takes to grow lasting forests. And I'm going to share just one personal story real quick about, that why are Hawaii forests so unique, and why are we putting so much effort in wanting to restore them? I vividly remember 2008 was the time when I first came to Hawaii as an intern to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park to work in their vegetation program. And working in the mature ohia and koa forests of the national park, and experiencing the beauty and the diversity of these forests, that's really sparked a flame in me that still burns today. And that's why I'm so happy and so generous for being able to work with these people on restoring the forests here in Hawaii for future generations. So when it comes to the process of how we restore forests, we like to simplify things, break things down into steps. And so we often refer to these 4 steps. It starts with seeds and propagation. Then we go into the field, site preparation and planting. We'll track the plants that we've put in the ground. And then we come back and there's long-term care to get plants established. And throughout this process, we utilize a variety of tools and technologies that help us improve, as well as place-based knowledge that Kate already mentioned earlier. And over the next slides, we'll go a little bit deeper into all of those 4 steps. So first up is seeds and propagation. Like Kate mentioned earlier, we here at Terraformation, we believe native biodiverse forests are one of the best tools we have to fight climate change, and the best tool we have to sequester carbon. What that means is we usually deal with a variety of species for our projects. And in most cases, we cannot purchase these seeds anywhere. We only have a limited number of nurseries available where we could purchase saplings, for example. So how projects for us usually start is by collecting the seeds that we need in the wild so we can propagate the plants. Because we will not plant a tree without having a seed in the first place. The seed collecting, however, is it's a seasonal process, right? Most plants flower and fruit and seed about once a year. And so we have one opportunity to get those seeds. And if we miss it, we'll have to wait till the next year. And that can cause problems and projects to take a long time. And like Kate mentioned, we have a time issue when it comes to tackling climate change. Right? We're way behind schedule, and forests take a long time. So how can we speed this up? And that's where technology can help us. On the bottom left image here, you can see a seed bank. That's Terraformation's seed bank that we operate here on the island of Hawaii. It's solar battery powered, so it's off-grid capable. And inside, it's fully built out and has a seed lab that's equipped with all the tools and gadgets and equipment that you would need to professionally clean, process, desiccate, and store seeds. And what this allows us to do is that when a new project comes across, instead of waiting for the seeds to get ripe and go into the field and collect seeds, eventually what we'll be able to do is go into the seed bank, pull out the seeds from storage, and start propagating right away. And with that, we can speed up the restoration process. We operate 2 nurseries in Hawaii. We have a low and a high elevation nursery. In a low elevation nursery, that's down on the west side in Kona, we grow the coastal plants, we'll grow the dry forest plants, Right? Tropical dry forests are some of the most endangered ecosystems on the planet. And in the higher elevation nursery, we grow the plants that would go into the more mesic and wet forests. And throughout the process of restoration, we aim to leverage science and place-based knowledge. So our nursery our seed bank manager, Lehua, she's part of the Hawaii Seed Banking Partnership. And that's really the core group of experts here in Hawaii that come together regularly, and they issue guidelines on best practices on how to desiccate seeds, for example, to really optimize for the highest viability rates during storage. And we apply those best practices in our operation. When it comes to the nursery, our nursery team is part of the Hawaii Nursery Hui. So that is a group of different nurseries from across the islands. They visit each other's nurseries. They have shared work days. They exchange practices, knowledge, experiences, and therefore learn as a group together to improve propagation methods. So next up is planting. Once we have the seeds, we have propagated the plants, it's time to get into the field. And like Kate mentioned in one of her slides, we in Hawaii, we have really a laundry list of invasive species to deal with. So in most cases, our project actually starts with site preparation and not planting. And that happens during the propagation time. So we have some especially large problems when it comes to invasives are feral ungulates. We have goats and we have wild pigs. Those animals were introduced by humans to Hawaii, and they do not have natural predators in the islands. So they thrive, and they are large numbers out in the wild. And so our projects usually start with building a fence to protect the plantings from those animals. Of course, invasive species control when it comes to plants is usually part of that. And in rare cases, irrigation installation, but that really only happens in very dry locations. We usually install a field base at our projects, and that's the case because we want to reduce the movement of equipment. And that field base also allows us usually to have power on site. It usually is equipped with a solar battery system. So we have electricity. We can charge electric power tools. So we don't solely have to rely on gasoline power tools. Since we're fighting climate change, we are always exploring ways to utilize electric and renewably powered tools for our work. We are also in this part of the work, we're leveraging science and place-based knowledge. The implementation of biosanitation protocols really goes back to the issue of invasive species that we have to deal with here in Hawaii. And that goes hand in hand with the field bases. The field bases allow us to store equipment at a site or close to a site and really minimize the risk of spreading certain species in between the different planting sites. And to reduce the spread of those species within a site, we also implement biosanitation protocols where we regularly clean our field equipment, so we are not the vectors that spread those pests. The field crew is tasked with understanding and gathering place-based knowledge. Observing the land is something that's deeply rooted in Hawaiian culture, and it's a very important task because it can guide us in the process of how to implement a project. reading the land and understanding the conditions will help us implement a better project. Next up is tracking. Here in Hawaii, we track every single plant individually using high accuracy mapping devices in order to learn faster. Goes back to the timing issue. We use a combination of tools. On the bottom left, you can see one of those GNSS receivers that's paired with a smartphone that provides the interface for the field team. And that information goes into Terraware and other GIS software. We use Esri products that likely many of you on the call are familiar with. But Terraware is something a little more unique. Kate mentioned it really briefly. At Terraformation, we are developing a forestry management software. It's called Terraware. And what Terraware allows us to do is to track the entire journey of a plant from the time we collect a seed from the mother plant, through the seed bank, through the nursery, and then back into the field. And we can connect the plants that we plant in the field to where the seeds come from. And being able to track that journey provides valuable information for us to make management and operational decisions. One important aspect, for example, is to understand propagation timelines. All right, we work with nature, we plant when the rain comes, and we want to be ready with our plants when the rain comes, because time is essential. And by tracking propagation timelines in Terraware of the different species, over time, we'll be able to better understand how long does species A, B, C, and D, and so on take to propagate. So we can start all of these species at the right time that they are ready when the rain begins. And then last up is long-term care. Most projects, we don't walk away. The work is not done when the tree goes into the ground. We're coming back to the site and we support the plants and their establishment phase. So, and that goes back to also reading and observing the land and improving our methods over time, because every time we do something, we want to learn something from it so we can do it better next time. These observations, they can look differently. Sometimes we go into the field, we monitor on the ground. We also have a licensed drone pilot that can gather information on a larger scale quickly. And the point of this work is to get plants established, to increase planting success, and to improve our methods going forward. And now, we're very excited to introduce to you a new project that we have just broken ground at a few weeks ago. And that is Iole at Āinakea. So Iole is our community project partner for this work. They are a nonprofit organization based on the northern end of Hawaii Island, or the Big Island. You can see there's a cutout of a map on the slide that shows the main Hawaiian islands. On the very bottom, this is Hawaii Island, or the Big Island. And where this marker is, this is where Iole is located. They steward over 2,000 acres of land. And their mission is to ensure that future generations have the chance for prosperity. And the way they want to do it is to create a place where Aina, which is the Hawaiian word for land, and Kanaka, its people, can thrive together. So in a way, it goes back to something that's often used here in Hawaii in the conservation community and restoration community, and that's referred to as biocultural restoration. how Iole is a unique organization. You can see they have some recognizable organizations on their board, such as the University of Hawaii, Arizona State University, Hawaii Community Foundation, and we are really looking forward to be working with them over the coming years. So this is a unique partnership in which Terraformation will support Iole in the restoration of really an entire ahupua'a. That's the goal for Iole. And this all starts with what we're working on at the moment as a 200-acre project that includes several aspects that we consider on how to create that vision for Iole. One aspect of that is a cultural gathering forest. So that would be a place where the community can go and collect plant material that is used for traditional practices such as hula or lei making. And of course, native forest restoration will be part of this work, agroforestry, as well as silvopasture. The map on the right, where you can see this green polygon, that kind of shows the land that Iole stewards. And it really goes from the shore up to the mountain. And it's a unique partnership and a unique opportunity because it really sets the foundation for what is in Hawaii referred to Mauka, which is the uphill part, and Makai, which is towards the shore. Mauka to Makai restoration. So today, right now, we're in the initial phase of this project, and we're really not in it to see quick wins, but where we are today is we need to set and build a foundation between organizations, a foundation between people. So we can restore this land over the long term and remove invasive species and so forth. On the bottom left, you can see an image from a recent site visit where we have started to clear the land. Yes, unfortunately, the planting site is dominated by invasive grasses that are pretty tough to deal with. And since we are working on climate change, we have decided not to bulldoze the land and do it quick and easy, because we do not want to disturb the soil, right? We work on climate change. We want to keep the carbon in the ground. So instead, we have been working with a forestry mulcher. We'll grind the vegetation to leave the biomass in place and leave the soil as much undisturbed as possible. On the bottom right, you can see this polygon in green. That's really the initial phase that we're currently working on. And we are in the final stages of site preparation. The invasive species have been cleared. The fence building will be completed about next week. And then one of the first steps for us will be to plant a living hedge that surrounds this polygon. We're going to utilize native species such as Milo and Co that are fast growing. We're going to plant them dense to create this thick barrier that will serve us as a windbreak, as well as a barrier for the seeds so they don't repopulate the planting area as quickly. And we're going to work with Iole, our project partner, and their partners, which is Arizona State University, University of Hawaii. They also have a collaboration with the local high school to get them involved into the implementation plan and continuously test and improve our methods there's a lot of work out there at 2,000 acres. So every time we want to learn to do the work better when we do this again. And then over the course of the rest of the year, we're gonna expand the initial area into this lighter green shaded area. We expand the planting site, and we'll analyze our initial approaches. Of course, we adapt them if needed. We're going to set up this infrastructure that I've briefly mentioned earlier. And we'll need to deepen our partnerships, that it's all about working between people, and integrate their needs into this implementation plan, because we need to gear up and get ready to plant several thousand plants in the planting season 26-27. And now I'll hand it back to Kate, and she will show you how you could become part of this solution.
Thank you, Johannes. Wow, that was a lot of detail and information, and a lot of what we do here in Terraformation, again, is research and development. You heard a lot about people and collaboration. But one of the things that we work on too that people don't want to talk about is money, right? And so how do you finance these types of projects? And Johannes and I spend a lot of time every day looking at different grant opportunities. Many of you on here might work for nonprofits. Our global company works on something called a Seed to Carbon Accelerator, where we help cohorts we help them with financing, with tools, with carbon accreditation. So we're looking at grants, at carbon. We look at different RFPs, and so we're looking at a portfolio of ways to finance projects. And then often people will say, well, what can I do to be a part of this solution? How can I personally get involved? And so we've recently launched a way that everyone can get involved. It's called our tree subscription. And this is a really cool way, again, for just individuals all around the world to get involved. Since we do the research and development in Hawaii, we're piloting this in Hawaii. I know that some questions have come in prior to the recording about, are we going to do this in other parts of the world? We hope to expand this to other parts of the world. And we hope this model can also work maybe for your organization, right? Maybe the carbon accreditation is too difficult. Maybe you lost in a grant opportunity. So this is something that we're piloting here in Hawaii called our tree subscription. For less than $1 a day, people can become involved. And it's not just purchasing a tree, it's really contributing to a forest and an ecosystem. And why we took you through the journey at Iole is that's where we're piloting this. It's a community-based forest where everyone can be involved. And we want to see this energy and inertia if individuals can help create a forest. And so the journey that Johannes took you on, from collecting seeds, propagating seeds, planting those seeds, tracking them, and the long-term care, that's all bundled into this price of $25 a tree to help create this ecosystem at Iole, that we're starting with the native forest and then expanding out to the cultural gathering garden, the agroforestry component, and then silvopasture, so native trees with cattle. So again, this is a really exciting opportunity for people to become engaged in this project that we just introduced you to at Iole, and watch it grow and flourish from the invasive species picture that you saw to something very similar to what you're seeing on this slide now. This is one of our projects in Waimea, so in the middle of Hawaii Island, the Big Island. And this was similar to what we're facing at Iole, where it was once pasture. And now you can see the trees are taller than me. It's starting to create a small canopy. We're starting to see return of native species, in particular, some different types of ferns. And so this ecosystem is starting to come back. And again, everyone can help support a forest now. Today, we talked about time, not having enough time. And so at Terraformation, again, what we hope to do is help organizations, help individuals all around the world, equip them with training, tools, technology. The Terraware we talked about is free and open source, and then looking at ways to find funding opportunities. And so this is an opportunity we hope that everyone can engage in and be a part of the journey from sea to forest at Iole. Maybe when you're on island, if you come here, come and join. But we also talked about transparency. So we'll be showing pictures, providing people with updates. Here's the journey. If you do subscribe, you'll be able to watch the seeds that we've collected. We're already planting for this year, but we're preparing for next year. Some of those seeds are already being propagated, and then you'll receive things like photos and lessons learned and what we're doing. And we're hoping truly that this information will resonate with others. Um, Johannes showed that slide about the team, and we talked about the partnerships at this project at Iole. It comes down to people and needing everybody on this call. If everybody helped plant trees, we would reach our goal of 1 trillion trees. But if everyone isn't participating and thinking, oh, those larger organizations are doing it, it's not going to happen. And so, again, trying to look for doors and openings for people to become involved. That's a question I get asked every day. I know Yishan has been asked that, thus, this has been inspired. And so, hoping that it works, hoping that you want to participate and become a part of Iole and watching it grow. And then one day bringing that to a place near you. I saw people drop in the chat. They were from, I think, Senegal and someone from India. So I'm looking forward to some questions too on maybe how the work that we do here can transfer to the work that you're doing wherever you are, or what you might be thinking. I know a few questions had come in ahead of time, and so we'll start with those. And what I suggest is, since people have been chatting in the chat, if you have any specific questions, to drop those into the Q&A. But I'll start with one that was sent with registration. So Johannes, I'll field this one to you. With the changing rainfall patterns and reduced amount of rainfall, how do you plan to adapt your methodologies?
Yeah, thank you, Kate. That is a fantastic question. And it's something that's on our minds when we plan the project, when we work out a species list, and we use a variety of tools and resources to make those decisions. Hawaii is, like Kate said, Hawaii is getting drier, and that might need to result in adopting or adjusting species lists. I'll post something in the chat about some tools that we use for this work that might be helpful for others, particular that work here in Hawaii. And I'll speak a little bit about that once.
Thank you, Johannes.
And so, sorry, Kate, let me just explain really briefly. Sure. There are 3 sources that I posted there. One is a species list from the USGS, which is the United States Geological Survey. So we here in Hawaii, we're in a way very, very fortunate, right? We're part of the United States that has very well-funded government agencies, a very, very healthy higher education system that does a lot of fantastic work that we can benefit from. And so this data can be used. There are species lists that show us where they are growing. And we have actually turned this into a public dashboard. That's that second link that should be accessible really to anyone. That contains at the moment about 100 species that we often use. You can click on that map and it will spit out a species list for you. And lastly, goes back to how do we might adjust a species list. We have another really incredible service here in Hawaii that's called the Hawaii Climate Portfolio Service from the University of Hawaii. There's also a link posted here for anyone that does work here in Hawaii. You can use the service, you can draw a polygon on a map, and you will get emailed a very detailed and thorough climate assessment of that particular location. It will be emailed to your email inbox, and it's a multi-page slide that has historic data as well as different projections for the future that can help you make those decisions.
Right on. Well, we're lucky to have those tools, Johannes. Thank you for sharing. I guess some places maybe you don't have those tools, or maybe your local university might have something like that. And we also talked about just observation and looking at an area. That's something that our team does before we start any project, and learning from that. And so we look at particular areas that, the rainfall, the patterns, and these types of observations also help us learn and iterate on our project plans. Um, I'm going to just change it up a little bit and throw one more at you, Johannes. So somebody, let's see, John asked specifically on this new project, Iole, what specific plants are you starting with and how many plants per acre?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Another great question. So we're planting between 400 to 600 plants per acre for this project. That's our plan. And yeah, the species really go back to what I mentioned in this earlier question, this USGS database. So that's where we go to understand what kind of species should be planted, because especially in this location, there are actually not a lot of native reference habitats left. There is not a lot of native vegetation left in this area. So we can't look to a forest preserve next door and understand what should we plant there. We need to use other tools and resources to come up with these decisions. So we use the USGS database, and it will include plants such as Willy Willy, Hala, Hoava, Iliahi, A'ali'i, for example. And we're looking to plant between 10 and 15 plant species next fall. That's the plan.
Super. Thank you, Johannes. I'll take one now. So this had come in ahead of time. A question was, how does your approach here in Hawaii differ from other areas of the world you work in? Well, I think the approach for everybody is different wherever you live. And, just like biodiversity in a forest, there's, the diversity here on this call. And so approaches are always different. The unique thing about Hawaii is we're so diverse. And so we're able to have all of different lessons learned because we have different ecosystems and landscapes where we can kind of emulate places all around the world. One thing that we can't emulate, though, is people, culture, money, right? And so something that's very different here in Hawaii is that we don't have any carbon projects. The accelerator and the rest of our company works on carbon projects, certifying landscape scale projects to capture carbon, but also to help livelihoods. Here in Hawaii, that economics just doesn't really pencil out. We haven't been able to make something happen. Therefore, we're piloting the tree subscription, right? We're constantly looking for different ways to fund our projects, looking at those grants, looking at philanthropic opportunities, and really thought that this could be an interesting way to start to fund a really cool project that's community-led. So I'd say that's one of the biggest differences is that we don't work on carbon projects. We also don't have huge areas of land mass here. And so when we're looking at projects, they're probably a bit smaller in scope. than the project partners that we work with all around the world. Um, every project is unique, but what we hope to do is to pass on all the skills, all the lessons learned, all the tools, have those technologies be as free as possible, to be open and answer questions, and then to also just try and innovate. And so something like the tree subscription or accelerator, these are all ways to try and invite organizations and people to get on board and to start helping to heal our forests, restore our planet. So the work that we do here in Hawaii is very different from the work that we do in Colombia or Ghana. But then I'd say there's probably a ton of commonalities, right? The teams, the root in community, the love and passion for nature, all of those things I think are all common. Um, so I'm hoping that what you learned today, you'll be able to try and implement at least a piece of that wherever you are in the world, or participate and become a part of what Johannes and our team are doing here in Hawaii, and watch it grow at Iole, or create your own Iole with university partners, and a tree subscription perhaps. So let's see. We got a couple more questions that came in on the Q&A. I'll give this from Tobias to Johannes. What type of agroforestry systems do you intend to establish in the new project?
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, agroforestry with Iole, we're exploring most likely a combination of crops and livestock, and a variety of crops in combination with native vegetation or native species. Hawaii has a pretty strong ranching history that might not be, everyone might not be aware of that. That's not from Hawaii. We have very large ranches on Hawaii Island, and there are ranches very close to Iole. So exploring and understanding how we can combine that type of land use with adding more trees and producing additional crops instead of only raising livestock will be one. And then the combination of what are the native species that we can combine with either crop trees or other native species that have been used for traditional practices. One specific plant that comes to my mind would be a plant called mamaki that has been used for tea, for example. That is an understory shrub, small tree that we're going to try out in combination with larger trees.
Awesome. Thank you, Johannes. Let's see, in the Q&A, Talon asked, what are the biggest challenges you're facing, the biggest problems you're trying to solve in your Hawaii operations? Geez, I think there's challenges every single day. I guess, first for me personally, that comes to mind is how do you fund a project? So that's one of the things that I try and look at every day. We talked about that and looking at different opportunities to fund a project. And then a big challenge that we also talked about today is time. So even if we were able to fund a project today, we most likely wouldn't be planting until next year. So we took you through that whole process, right, of seed collecting. We would hope to have some seeds in our seed bank that we would need for the project. But then the propagation, and many of these tropical trees can take a really long time to propagate. And then the preparation, finding the invasive species, preparing the land, and then planting. So if we had all the money today to do a project, we most likely wouldn't be putting trees in the ground until at least next year. And so from my perspective, some of the biggest operational challenges is one, how do you fund the project? Then two, the time that we're up against, because if there's so much excitement and elation when you're like, okay, now we can do this project. And then there's this long period and journey before you even start to see results. And that can be um, sometimes, I guess, discouraging to people. And so we want to be realistic too about what it takes to actually grow a forest, right? And that's sort of what we talked about today. So I think for me personally, those are probably the biggest challenges. How about you, Johannes? What would you say are the biggest challenges?
Yeah, I'll take more the field operational part of that. I'd say from that perspective, really the invasive species are a very, very challenging problem to solve. In the tropics and subtropics, it's probably somewhat different in the temperate forests. I know we had a question that was submitted from Slovenia about succession forestry during the registration process. So succession forestry is not something that we can do a lot here, and that goes back to the high invasive species pressure, because those invasive species usually outcompete our native species very, very quickly, and we end up with a invasive species dominated landscape. And that's what actually often happens when certain land management stops. And what you saw on that on the one slide where it said the initial phase of where we are in the project, and with that site visit where we have those thick invasive grasses, that's the first thing that moved in once the previous land management stopped. And so the invasive dealing with and controlling the invasive species is something that's very, very challenging for us. And therefore, we are actively participating in groups such as there's a community group that's working on a new pest called the coconut rhinoceros beetle. And we have participated in that. We have provided written testimony to put in an interim rule, because when it comes to invasive species, really, when they are first detected, we have the best chance to not have them become established. Once they're established, we're going to have to deal with them for the rest of our lives. And it goes back to Kate's point about how do we pay for a project. Those invasive species make the projects a lot more expensive than they would be without them, because that's why we have to build those fences. And that's why we have to get a forestry mulcher on site to make space for the native plants. And all these expenses could be avoided without invasive species. So that's a really big challenge from my perspective, that probably a lot of people on the call from tropical regions might share with us.
Absolutely. I totally agree, Johannes. And, unfortunately, it's not very sexy when you're removing invasive species and putting up a fence. People want to see the forest, right? But this is truly what it takes to create a forest, is that you're fighting all of these things before you can even put a tree in the ground. So thank you for that. Let's see. So Austin and Kamiko both were asking Johannes about mycorrhizal fungi and inoculants, and whether we use these in our projects. And so I'll let Johannes take this. I know that we don't at this point, but we definitely take a lot of care in the health of our soil and of the soil. And we would love to look more into that. It looks like Kamiko can maybe bring some more insight. Johannes, did you want to answer that question, please?
Of course, Kate, thank you. Yeah, to Kate's point, we do know like fungal inoculation or something like that at the planting site. We work with that in the nursery to an extent to improve propagation in the nursery. But that's as far as that goes at the moment. But yes, Kimiko, be happy to follow up after the webinar and see how this might be integrated into our operation and improve forest restoration. Thank you for bringing this up.
Awesome. So we're almost at time, everyone, and we still have more questions coming in, and some that we didn't answer ahead of time. So I want to just pause for a second and let everyone know that we will be following up with everybody to answer questions. We'll be sending this webinar recording as well as the deck. But again, going back to like people and the fact that it takes all of us, and once we all start putting our minds together, I think we can start to move closer to our goal of helping to mitigate this crisis that we're all facing. And so at Terraformation here, again, we're here to educate, to help inspire, and to just help everybody be of service. And so if anyone has questions after this, we're always welcome to email and engage with people as well. So we have a few more minutes. Let's just do one more question before we wrap it up. Sorry, there was quite a few in here, so some of them might take a little bit longer. So Woombi was asking, what are the ownership structures like for area plantations of agroforestry? You know, that is something I think we're going to have to take offline, Woombi, when it comes to like any type of land tenure. This is a huge process before even you start planting trees as well. And for agroforestry, because you're harvesting crops and there's a financial mechanism there and benefit, I think that structure is always very different. For Iole, that component is really supposed to be a community-led forest, and so most likely the bounty of the agroforestry will go to the community and help the community at large as well as the school. But that structure is different. We have some agroforestry projects on the east side of Hawaii Island, and Johannes can take that offline to tell you about the ownership structure of those and then how we sell the crops and things like that. And again, always looking to learn more lessons. Therefore, we have added this component into the Iole project so that we can continue to learn more each and every day. So I want to stop and just thank everybody for joining us today from all around the world. And again, here's our website. Here's a way to get in contact with us. I hope that everyone will participate and be a part of the journey at Iole. It's a really awesome project. Whether or not you're physically here, you'll be able to follow that journey and force with us. So thank you, everybody, for joining today.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a good day.